My
Okay.
brother called me this morning and said, "So how did it go?"
Well,
And I
let's
said,
let's
and I told him about our conversation about, we should do this instantly.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
I told him that you had to go talk to a Mormon. And while you were gone, I did a Coke commercial.
That's true. That is how it went. We were interrupted by Mormon missionaries. I was polite enough to answer the door mid-broadcast. Bill immediately jumped to a Coke commercial, always think executive thinking. And your brother immediately calls to ask, how did his ideas for our show go?
Yes.
And they went wonderfully, except on a technical end, we have to get a couple of
I
things
know.
over again. So here
Well,
it is.
you texted me while I was talking to him.
Oh
Okay.
my
So,
gosh.
and we're doing a FaceTime call, and your text shows up right over his head. And it says, "Hey, man, I'm sorry."
Yeah, yeah. It's like I have a really stupid thing to report. Just like being back at Warner Brothers. I have a dumb thing to report and a thing we have to correct
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
But let's start the show and we're going to try and get some of the highlights over
Okay.
again for those.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Combat Radio with everyone's favorite former Warner Brothers senior vice president turned producer Bill Daly, who worked on Harry Potter, Lethal Weapon, The Matrix, but he has an executive sense of logistics, and this is a part two of an earlier show where there was some technical issues, and he jumped back and he had the wardrobe department check in today, and he jumped
Yeah.
right back.
Yeah.
So it's seamless.
They pressed it so the lines would match.
Good, good. That's a good department. So you'll have to guess which is the original broadcast and what is the take two broadcast, but it's there for you. But we were having a fun conversation because your brother triggered it.
Yes.
Well, first things first, whenever we talk on the phone, it's gold. It's so hilarious. And then, of course, we say, let's put this on a show. And 3 days, 4 days, a week later, it's still good, but it's like 60% of the comic firepower
Yes. Yes, it is.
that it
Yes.
usually had. But we're going to try to recapture the magic. But your brother said, great suggestion, you and Ethan should do a show about Ted Turner because you
Yeah.
met him, you helped him.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was one of our charismatic leaders at Warner's for a time. I found him asleep in a room on a couch, true story. And everyone in the executive building acted like he did that all the time.
He may
No one
have.
was surprised by it. But Ted Turner, your thoughts?
Well, he actually he had a condo or an apartment at the top of the CNN building. So
Yes, he
actually
did.
lived at work, and he got rid of
Yeah,
that when he decided at some point he decided to retire. He
yeah,
gave up that apartment and then he moved to Florida, but not like the Gold Coast of Florida that you would expect. A real southern boy part of Florida, probably
yeah.
in the Tallahassee area, northern
Right,
Florida
right.
along the Panhandle. And that's, I guess, where he lived when he wasn't at the ranch.
It's interesting that apartment you're talking about. And he had like a few apartments and condos around certain businesses. One was over at a restaurant he owned, and it was very modest. It was basically a living room and a bedroom and a very small kitchen. Like he
Hmm.
was only there when it was about business and keeping an eye on his business. He wasn't there to be
Right,
comfortable.
right.
And we we had we had a humorous conversation that one of his ideas when he took over Warner's was get rid of the private jets. And
Yes,
you had to explain, or people had to explain, here's the real reason we have private jets.
yes. The
And
private
it
jets were an
was,
asset
yes,
because you could attract movie stars and directors with
hmm,
the private jet.
yeah,
And Warner Brothers, I don't know what the deal is now. I've been away for quite a long time, but they had a condo in Acapulco. We didn't talk
hmm.
about that yesterday. I didn't think of it.
Who
We had
got
a
to use
condo in
it?
Acapulco and we had a condo in Aspen, Colorado.
Yeah,
So it was really easy to go to the film festivals, like Telluride and
yeah.
what other festivals are going
The
on there.
Acapulco International Film Festival.
Well, they had Lorimar. So I don't know if when Lorimar was bought out by Time Warner, I don't know if Time Warner inherited the property down in the San Diego area, Carlsbad. There was like a little mini resort thing, in
Right.
Carlsbad, that had a name. Unfortunately, I can't remember it, but if I remembered it and told you what it was, you would say, that sounds like the mafia meets there. Okay. And it really did sound like that.
We did use code names and for projects, and they were never, I thought, very good. They weren't very, and it was no 3 days of the Condor when it came to code names
Oh,
and
right, right,
projects.
right. Yeah, yeah.
It was
Okay.
it was like a rainbow's morning or a sunny day in Virginia or something. And it'd be like, what? But we also that
Oh
led
yeah,
us,
like the fake names for the movies too,
yeah,
because we
yeah.
would attach names to big projects that we wanted to keep wraps on because they were garnering too much attention otherwise. And that would be like the Batmans, all the Batmans, every single Batman since the second one, at least. I wasn't involved in the first one. That they did the first one in England, and all the others like they did others in England and everything too, but we had
Mm,
a little more control. I felt like we had a little more control over the other ones.
code
All the Harry
words.
Potters had fake names, and
Yeah.
they would have one fake name during production and another during post-production, and a third one when they were doing previews. We previewed almost everything. And so a big deal movie would have a fake name for the preview too, because if you're shipping elements and stuff like that, you didn't want to give it away. Um, and I remember we did the very first Harry Potter. Mark Marshall called me and he said, "Okay, we're going to ship, we're going to bring this, we're going to hand carry this print over, and these are the details." And I said, "Have you attached a name to this?" And he said, "Not yet, but do you have any ideas?" And I said, we had just within a year and a half or so, we had just had a huge bomb of a movie that Robin Williams was in, believe it or not, called
Was it Father's Day?
no, 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 that wasn't a bomb. That was a decent movie. It was no, not Being There. It was Being
Toys?
Human. I think it was Being Human,
Oh,
something
yes.
like that. Oh, it was
I think I
some.
know the movie you're talking about. The one,
Okay, so I
Bicentennial
said,
Man? Was it Bicentennial? I don't
no,
know.
no, it was Being Human.
Okay.
So, so, so I said, you do that name. Because if anybody looks it up, they're going to go, "Oh God, I'm not interested in
Yeah,
that."
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So it was Being Human. And then I'm getting these emails, and everybody else are getting emails, and they must have been scratching their heads because the subject was being human. And it's
Right.
like, what, are we still talking about that? You know?
Yeah.
Um, but I just thought, just to screw with everybody, we would do that. And then there was a time, I know I'm a little bit off subject here, but there was a time when I think it was Harry Potter, it was either three or four, where word got out that we were previewing it in Chicago. And it was on some obscure Italian website. Okay, not like the Italians were going to be showing up in Chicago, but you never know, I guess. But they don't know who looks at these websites, and we just didn't
Hmm.
want some big scene, you know. So, um, and we had another stupid name, some other failure of a movie that we did, okay, that bombed. That was the fake name for that one, okay. So almost, oh my God, it was like the 11th hour, and we decided to switch theaters. And so we moved away from the really good theater that I liked, that I wanted, where I really wanted to do it. And and then they canceled the one and sent notices out to all the people who had registered to come, you know, it's been canceled, you know, and I said, "No, don't do that. Don't cancel it. Don't cancel it. Actually, let them do their screening, but we will send a print of Being Human or whatever the name was on that one. We will send a print, okay? And anybody who listened to that website and showed up is suddenly going to be assaulted by one of
Yeah.
the worst movies that was in the catalog of Warner Brothers, okay?
What?
That was my idea. And they didn't want to spend the money on keeping the theater rental and shipping the print. You know, it would have involved some money to do that, and they just didn't want to do that. And they, obviously, I have a more warped sense of humor than the people who do the previews. Okay.
That's a brilliant idea, though. I mean, that's like a CIA grade trick, and it's so funny. I mean, it just to do that and to sort of discredit everything that may follow.
Yeah.
That's genius. I would have done
I
it. I
just
would have
wanted to
said, "What's
burn
the
that website
expense?"
down. I wanted to burn that website down. I
Oh,
mean, with no
genius.
credibility, but we moved it. We moved it to a theater further north in Chicago, and it went well. It was right next door to Second City, believe it or not.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
theater that we used. I can't remember the name of it. Um, and then we used that theater for other movies too. We did a double feature one time. We had Harry Potter and I mean, get this, the Brave one, okay? A Neil Jordan directed, Joel
Right.
Silver produced movie, okay? Violent
Yeah.
beyond
Yes.
belief movie.
Yeah.
At least that version of it, was very violent. And we had one earlier in the day and one the next day, or one in the daytime, one at night. I can't remember exactly what the thing was, but I was in Chicago for a couple days with that because we were wrangling two different screenings in there, the two vastly different movies.
And Joel Silver, if you're watching, you still owe Bill and me a pair of your silk gold colored pajamas. We're still waiting on our pajamas you promised us.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm actually working on fitting into them.
yes.
Okay.
You know who else I saw in pajamas walking around Warner Brothers? Aaron Sorkin, but I'll save that story for another day. But when we were talking
Okay.
about private jets, it also led us to a conversation. Not all of it's going to make it into this broadcast, but about celebrities that were going off getting
Yes.
we were
Well,
celebrities that
here's
were
the
going off and
yes.
getting pilot
Well,
license.
so what was happening was that, especially after 9/11,
Yeah,
the private jets became a really big deal because people didn't want to go deal with the airports and stuff.
right.
Like Chicago, for instance, the private jet goes out of the private jet area of Burbank and goes to Midway instead of O'Hare in Chicago. And Midway doesn't have nearly, when you're on a private jet, there is some security,
Hmm.
but it's not nearly like, take the shoes off and show us
Right.
the deed to your home and we're going to mortgage it until you come back, sort of thing. Um, so that became a big draw. But then it was kind of funny. All these movie stars, big name movie stars, started getting pilots licenses. And then they wanted to fly themselves to not to the screenings, although they might have, but to the locations and stuff. And the deal with the private jet was that you can induce and you don't give up the private jet so that they can I mean you could use the Acapulco and the Aspen residences, but you didn't give it up so that they could go, to Santa Barbara and have lunch and come back. I mean, that wasn't the idea of the private jets, but you would fly them to the locations. If it was a director, we would use that to do location scouting, to get them there. I mean, those jets are expensive to operate, so they don't just give them up for any old thing. But the thing is, you get some big star, and we say, okay, you will fly to the location with this, you'll
Hmm.
come back with this, and then your family, if your family wants to come and visit you the third week of production, as an example, um, they will bring them by private jet to come and see you, and we'll bring them back home, that sort of thing. So the private jets. Um, were worthwhile. Ted saw the wisdom in that. As soon as it was
Yeah.
explained to him, because I think he was just kind of looking at the books, black and white, and seeing two private jets and crews to run them, I think he just saw that and thought it was really wasteful. I think he thought that it was Barry and Alan flying off to different places, which they did do, but I think he saw that way. And a lot of us, not that I only rode on that jet once. I mean, not that I had every opportunity to go on the private jet, but if you were going a really long distance, like to London, the private jet was not the way to go because it's uncomfortable.
What was
It's
the
you're so much better off in first class on United or American Airlines or whomever, if you're going to make a long haul trip like that.
We talked about how for insurance purposes and bonding purposes, we had to buy him two first class tickets.
Yes,
They didn't have to use them, but
right.
we wanted to make it look like the travel wasn't reckless, and we were laughing about the fact that was the Billy. That was we called that the what do we call that? The
Ricky
Richie
Ricardo,
Valens.
the
Well,
what?
well, we called that the Richie Valens clause or
Oh,
something.
the Richie
But
Valens clause in the
you know,
contracts. Yeah,
or the
well,
Buddy Holly clause. Don't
yeah,
you're not
yeah,
don't
yeah.
fly yourself. But also, you said Ricky Ricardo because that was who?
That was Tim Burton. It
That
was
was
Ricky
Tim Burton when he
Ricardo. Yeah.
traveled. He went under
And he would fly, we'd
Ricky
fly in
Ricardo.
first class. Well, that's in the DJ contract, first class.
Yeah.
Although it's subject to interpretation, and I'm not going to bore the audience with that. But I'll tell you privately what that interpretation is. But you fly them first class. It's in all their contracts. And you he would get two seats. He would get the one next to him so that he could. I don't know what he did on the flights. My thinking was that he was probably working on the flights and didn't want to be interrupted and probably needed the other seat for his
Yeah.
notebooks and stuff. No, he was a workaholic, so he was constantly working. I'm not making fun of him for taking up two seats. It's, you know, I took
No
up two
explanation
seats
required.
several times. I took up two seats several times because there were times when I myself took a print with me, and the print got a ticket too. You
Hmm.
never let it out of your sight. It got a ticket, and it got a seatbelt extender, and it was sat on the seat next to you.
What was the print that comes to mind when you tell that story?
Well, it's big movies like Harry Potter, for instance.
Yeah.
Get that. Well, there was one time I actually, yeah, I mean, I took prints myself several times when we were going on short flights to Phoenix or Sacramento.
Hmm.
Sometimes I would take a print with me just because I liked to be helpful, you know. And I wanted to keep the budgets down. And it was nothing to me because I'd had a little hand truck thing and I'd drag it onto the flight and the stewardesses would all hover over me and were really helpful, that sort of thing. But we did the finishing of the answer print of the color. We did the finishing of the color, the picture of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince in LA. For some reason, there was a problem with Technicolor, and they weren't able to turn the prints around fast enough when we're doing the color timing. So Peter Doyle brought all of his work here to LA, and he and I side by side in North Hollywood, and it was amazing because we finished reel one. All the notes go to the colorist, and she was great. I can't remember her name. She was great, and then we start on reel two. And by the time we were finished going through in minute detail, because you could stop and start when you're doing that.
Hmm.
By the time we finished reel two with all our starts and stops and all that kind of stuff and all the notes, here comes reel one with the changes. And Peter was like, I can't believe this. If I'm in London, this takes a whole day. I'm coming back the next day to look at this reel. And I'm like, what can I say? I mean, this is what we do. This is Hollywood. This is what we
Right,
do.
right. It's the
So,
machine.
um, they should have brought all of them. And you wouldn't be able to see anything in that movie if it wasn't for me, because I'm the one that kept saying it's too dark. It's too dark. Look at we spent a lot of money on the set dressing. There's that scene in Snape's house when
Yeah.
Bellatrix and her sister, Malfoy's mother, come to visit Snape, and he has the scene where he does the unbreakable vow um, sort of thing, and beautifully dressed set, of his home and all that stuff. And it was too dark. We spent all this money on set dressing, and you couldn't see it. And that was one of the arguments I was making when I was at Technicolor. It's too dark. This stuff is just too dark. And they used to explain, it was bullshit. They would explain all the time, oh, well, the stories are getting darker, the kids are getting older, everything's more mature. It's just, and the dark complements that. That's just total bullshit. The movies were darker as it went on because they wanted to conceal the imperfections in visual effects. Flat out, that's what it was. We did a trailer. One of them had a trailer, and like the trailer went out. I don't know who color timed it, and I don't know if it was approved by the studio or whatever, but a trailer went out, and they were upset by the because it was so bright, and you could actually see imperfections in the visual effects.
Mm.
I think it was Harry Potter 5. I think that was the trailer, Order of the Phoenix. So. Um, don't buy into that bullshit that the stories are darker. I can't wait to see what they're doing on HBO, because at
When
some
will
point
you
the
see it? Do
darkness
you know?
doesn't register on
Uh,
television because, HBO, it's for television. So, you only have so much brightness that you can deal with. The human eye can pick up a million different shades of variation of color and light. Believe it or not, the human eye, a healthy person's eyes can get a million shades of color and light. Okay. The best motion picture film is maybe 200 or 300. I mean, that's all it is. And TV back in the day, I'm not quite so sure with HD and stuff. I haven't worked any television since HD came into being. But when it was a cathode ray CAT tubes, um, it was 10 to 1. I mean, so you go from a million to one down to 100 or 200 to one to 10 to one, and that's a huge variation in color and light. Um, I don't know how we
we'll
got on that,
see.
but
Well, we'll see. No, we were talking about
oh,
code
about
name.
Harry Potter, the HBO thing. Some part of me is curious about it. Another part of me doesn't want to see it because I'm setting myself up for disappointment.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing I can hope for is that they have enough time to fully explore the books in ways that we couldn't because we, the first three books were like 200 pages each.
You
Something,
know
and
what I
then,
wanted to look, while we're
then
on
you
the
got
subject,
prequels. Yeah.
what talk to me about why, Spielberg was in the mix to direct that at one point. Why did we not work with
He
him
was
on that?
considered for it. Well, somebody suggested that he do it. And I don't know in what shape or form contact was made with him over it because I wasn't part of that. But he suggested, or it came back that he suggested that he wanted to do it animated.
Mm,
But the thing is, they were just starting up DreamWorks and they wanted to bolster the animation division. I personally was against Steven Spielberg doing it because then it becomes a Steven Spielberg thing. Like we were the ones who bought the rights. We were the ones who developed that thing over 4 years before that
right.
first one happened. And to suddenly give up the ownership of it, because that's what happens when you bring Steven Spielberg on. You give up ownership, and that thing would have had a DreamWorks logo on it as well as ours. And I just didn't think that was the way to go with it. And I really thought Chris Columbus what was a fabulous choice. Even when they first mentioned him, I thought, yeah, that would work because they wanted somebody they knew could work with kids. So Spielberg they knew could do that. And it wasn't because of his visual thing. It was the sense that he could deal with all these kids. And the same thing with Chris. And when Alfonso finally did the third one, it was based on his having done Little Princess for us, where
Yeah.
the important thing was he had done with these kids and stuff. But in the meantime, he became this sort of icon of independent films, where he was um, doing riskier material and stuff. And then he made a lot of changes to Harry Potter. That's when it really
Um,
got dark and stuff.
quick footnote. Did you see where the kid from Jurassic Park played Joseph Goebbels recently? Like flash forward, all of a sudden he's playing like these types of characters. And it was
Really?
a
In
yeah.
Nuremberg? Oh no,
No, not
Goebbels
Nuremberg.
wasn't part of Nuremberg.
It
Yeah.
was a film about Goebbels,
Oh
and he
wow,
plays
wow.
the title role. And I'm like, wow, it's amazing. Last time I remember seeing him, he was running from T-Rex.
But why
But
would they? Why would they hire a professional actor when they can just get Stephen Miller and not pay him anything?
gee, see, there we go. Because they want a good performance that's riveting, and I don't think
Well,
Miller's going to give you that.
you don't think he's believable as an
I
evil
do,
thing?
yeah. But who else was in the mix in the early days on Potter? Do you remember who was
Well, it
kicking it
was the
around?
first one stopped with oh, I don't know. I don't know all the people they talked about.
Yeah,
I know Spielberg was talked about, and I know that Chris Columbus was.
yeah.
This for the second film, Chris was the only one. Chris resisted doing it because he was tired of being in England. And he bitched and moaned a lot of the time that he was there because he wanted to be back. He lives in San Francisco. He's from
Yeah.
Chicago. He wanted to be back in the U.S. He kept making a pitch, oh, let's do the post in L.A. Well, what he really meant was San Francisco. Let's do the post in San Francisco. But the thing is that the tax deal that movie doesn't get made without the tax deal that was in place. And so we had to adhere to the rules, and we sent too many Americans on that first film.
Yeah.
So Duncan Henderson had just come off Perfect Storm, and he did such a great job producing that the studio wanted to reward him. So he was producer on there, and there's an unusual credit for him. It's like I don't remember exactly, but if you look at the DVD and you'll see the logo comes up, and then it's got Warner Brothers Presents, and it'll be 1492 because that's Chris Columbus's company. I'm sure 1492 is on there, but there's also Duncan Henderson, as if he's a company, gets one of those kind of like company credits on there. That was in his contract. I mean,
Mm.
they tried to weasel out of it. The studio tried to figure a way out of it because it looked awkward with all the other company credits and stuff. But that was his deal. And then Duncan himself was an American, and then he brought over some of his guys, like his production unit manager guys, and some people like that. So all of a sudden, we're in a hole with bad spend because we brought too many Americans over there, and but not Mark Marshall because Mark Marshall was replacing another American whose husband fell ill and had to come back to the U.S. So Mark Marshall was late to the game on there, and that was my idea, Mark Marshall, and I thought it was
Yeah.
inspired. Um,
Yes.
I
That was a good
found
idea.
I
We
found
both
the
love Mark
memo.
Marshall.
I found the memo that I sent out to everybody when I
Yeah.
hired Mark. I sent a memo out to everybody, introducing Mark to them, and I found it like last week or the week before, and I was looking for something else, and I found this memo, and I was like, oh my God, I wonder if Mark ever saw this. So I emailed it to him, and I asked him, have you ever seen this? This is what I sent out when I hired you, and he said, oh wow, no, I'd never seen that, but. Wow, so thank you. Thanks for all the nice things.
Is that memo in his book? Did he put that in
No,
his book?
I only just found it.
Oh, that would have been a good well, he can save it for the sequel. He wrote a great book, by the way.
Well, I'm sure he can make changes because those are printed to order.
Yeah,
It's
he can
Amazon.
add it. He can add it if he wants to go through the headache of adding it.
Yeah, I
But
guess so.
it's worth having. It's funny talking about this because I'm not sure if this next part will make the broadcast or is top secret, but wasn't Harry Potter basically paid for before it was even
No,
finished? Wasn't there
no,
like
what
a TV
happened was
deal
no,
in
no, no.
place
What
or
happened, we made our money back very quickly on it, is what happened. So the movie so we did this, there was a name for the tax deal. I don't remember what the name of it was. Because now they've changed. It used to, in the old days, it was sale. Oh, it might have been sale leaseback because it used to be the ED plan. 50 years ago, it was the ED plan. 25 years ago, 30 years ago now, it was the sale leaseback. That's what we had. We had a sale leaseback plan. It had to do with, it's a shell game of moving shell companies around and having good spend and bad spend. And the UK has adjusted their their rules on qualifying for the tax deal because there's a cultural element to it. There is, of course, an element of, hiring people from the UK
yeah.
because that's how they get, you hire these people and then they pay payroll taxes back, and that's how they get some of their money back because the payroll taxes go to that country. So there is that, but there's a cultural thing, and as a cultural entity, Harry Potter, I mean, that's British all the way. And then they found out a German deal. So you'll see this on movies from that era. So we're talking about 2001, 2002, 2003, where in the end credits, it'll have a German GmbH sort of thing on there. And
Yeah.
we discovered a tax deal where Germans would invest in projects like this because they were taxed on their assets. I guess whatever they were holding as assets were taxed more heavily than their incomes. I don't quite understand it. I'm not a tax guy. And since we had professional tax people, I didn't really need to know it.
Mm.
You know what I mean? My head was full of all this other crap,
Yeah, you had
you
other
know?
things to worry about. I was just
So,
curious because somebody
so
had said
but
something.
that tax deal, that German tax deal almost paid for the first movie. And then when the second movie, before the second movie was started production, I think, certainly before it finished, um, both of the movies were paid for because we made a deal with ABC for the broadcast rights. The first four or five broadcasts, commercial
That's
broadcasts,
that's what I was thinking of.
paid for those movies, paid the negative costs. Basically, what was the negative cost for those movies?
It's
So
amazing.
that was great. That was fortuitous, but it just it speaks to the power of the material though, more than anything else. It wasn't because some wizard, pardon the pun, came out and was able to flush money out of his backside. It was because everybody wanted Harry Potter. Everybody wanted to see it, and a lot of people wanted to be involved in it.
Hey, let's go through the bullet points that we did not talk so much about Harry Potter last time around. We
Oh, we
kind of
didn't
get
talk at
fixated
all
on
about
things.
Harry Potter. Yeah.
But some of the things we did talk about that were fun, and maybe we should put up. Well, number one was Klaus Kinski dressed as Beast in Beauty and the Beast,
You know,
yelling at Fred
I
Fuchs, the
had and I
producer.
had all day
But
today to look up that movie, the trailer I saw, and I didn't.
and
I'm
I don't know
sorry.
that I want it. We don't. I don't know if we need to get into more Klaus Kinski stories here. But we have talked about him in depth as being one of the most sane people our industry's ever produced. But
It never affected me. I mean, he drove all the
that's
producers
true.
crazy. It never affected me, but boy, I was entertained. I was
Well,
entertained
oh
by
man.
Tim
Well, what I love
Kowalski.
now is Werner Herzog, who is entertaining in his own right.
Yeah.
I love how he tells the story about, and you have to do it in a Herzog accent, where we openly conspired to murder each other. I was going to burn down his Quonset hut made of exotic bamboo, and I had a torch made of flintlock and gasoline that I was going to throw right through his window while he slept. They like openly tried to murder each other. But look, we didn't get into too much Kinski because we've given him far too much
Yeah,
airspace.
yeah, he's
But
yeah, he
but
he'll just remain our nightmare and
yeah,
not your viewers, okay?
right, right. We will have our Klaus Kinski. We did also ask Mark Marshall if he was in the running for Raiders of the Lost Ark because that was the rumor, and he kiboshed it. Said I don't think Spielberg would have. I think Martin Casella backed that. Casella was also Spielberg's assistant and went on to star in Poltergeist, and I think he said the same thing. Like I don't think
Yeah,
I'm
I
going to
you
star
know, yeah,
with him.
I think one of the comments I know that I made yesterday was that Stephen was well educated enough in the business
Yeah,
to know better than to go down that road
right.
with
I think
Klaus
so.
Kinski. I think he would have read tea leaves and he would have heard stories. We all hear stories.
I think on the first meeting, even if he was gracious enough to give Kensky the meeting, and I think he might have. I mean,
Oh,
Spielberg
Kinski
liked
probably wouldn't
conversation,
have shown up. He'd have to go visit him.
but I think at that moment, Spielberg knows right away. We're not going to be trapped in the North African desert with this guy.
Oh, yeah, I never thought of that. Yes, to be trapped in Tunisia
Yeah, oof.
with
We're gonna.
oh my
We're not going to
God.
put it in his head. We're not going to give him the psychology of putting him in a Nazi uniform
Yeah.
and being trapped on the continent with this.
Oh my
But the
goodness.
other thing we talked about, we laughed about, was I missed a rare opportunity to join you at a book signing for a guy we both worked with, director Andrew Davis. And that's
Yeah.
a big loss to me. But you were like, we could have ganged up on him
We
because
could have
Ethan,
gotten him. He could have
yeah,
been on
Bill,
this. He could have been on this broadcast.
he
He
would have
could
been
have
on this
been, he
broadcast.
totally could have been on this thing. We could have hovered over him until he agreed
Yeah. Yeah.
to
And he
let
would have done
us,
it.
to let us drive up to Santa Barbara and visit his facility and sit him down
Still may
and
happen. Still may
yeah.
happen. But what was funny is I think the way you put it was like, Ethan, you could tell him about all the failed movies you worked with him on.
No, I didn't say that. You brought it up. I didn't mention
Yeah,
that.
I
I
am
don't.
known for working with all the
Yeah.
greats in movies they'd prefer to forget. Collateral being one of them with him and Schwarzenegger. But
Yeah.
you said he had a really good signing and
Yeah.
Davis was Davis. He's very likable.
Yes, he
Um,
is.
and that led us to
He's a great
talking briefly.
director.
Yeah,
And
he
we were
is.
talking about Tommy Lee Jones because
Yeah,
Andy had also done the package. That wasn't us. That was MGM, I believe.
right.
And that was in Chicago and in Germany. I know it takes place in Germany in the beginning, and then the rest of it's in Chicago in the wintertime. I'm familiar with Chicago in the wintertime, having been on
Yeah.
location there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I would
Well,
love to
we
work on another Andy Davis movie.
yeah, yeah,
I really
I can see
would.
why.
I
Well, I
hope
mean,
he
you might
sells his
get your
book.
shot. You might get your
Yeah.
chance. He also
Wow.
did Under Siege for us. That's what we were talking about. We were talking about how Wesley Snipes had a posse and production
Yes.
advised him to ditch him. They were going to wreck his
Yes.
career because
Yes.
you had to pay for them and give them bogus jobs or something. Like, this
Yeah,
guy's
it's
going to
kind of
be,
like, yeah, they would have these, but they were interfering. They were
yeah.
interfering with production, with their shenanigans. And I don't know specifically what they were because it's secondhand for me. We shot it in Florida. Um, we all liked the movie here, all the stuff, the dailies and stuff.
Mhm.
I wasn't seeing dailies in those days. But I would hear
We're,
about them because I would ask. I would ask, how are the dailies? How does this look? How's Wesley Snipes? Um,
we're talking Passenger 57.
Passenger 57.
Plan not working out the way you wanted, asshole.
Don't flatter yourself, Cutter. You prevented nothing. Although it seems I may have underestimated you.
Dumping the fuel was quite ingenious. At least Mr. Douglas's body won't have so far to fall now.
Well, maybe Vincent could hitch a ride with him on his way down. You know, Charlie, I'm a little surprised at you. Didn't your father ever teach you never send a boy to do a man's job?
Speaking of boys, our stewardess friend must be feeling particularly unsatisfied.
Charlie, you ever play roulette?
On occasion.
Well, let me give you a word of advice. Always bet on black.
And then when we saw the finished film, and Under Siege had already been out, when we saw the finished film, and we had already been talking at the studio about how Under Siege is really Die Hard on a ship, and
Hmm.
then Passenger 57 is Die Hard on a plane. And it was kind of refreshing. I don't think the movie holds up as for it doesn't for me. It doesn't hold up as Under Siege does. But at the time, we were saying, "Oh, we've and Wesley Snipes can do all that karate martial arts stuff better than Steven Seagal can." Because he was more fluid in his motions. He wasn't struggling with his weight, and stuff like that. If I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
be kinder than I was yesterday. Okay.
Well, I remember a cinematographer saying he had to frame up Seagal. This is before I worked with Seagal, with like a monitor. If he entered the room, like there's a computer monitor there, so it's like or he's holding a file, some sort of accessory. And
Well,
they
he
called
wore an
him they
apron.
called him yeah, and they called him the Girdle Man on the Glimmer Man openly. Well, not
Yeah,
openly, not
yeah.
so he could hear, but everyone did it.
And I think The Glimmer Man might be the movie where the chin light came in.
Oh, that's right, the legendary chin light, the
Yeah, they had
DP innovation to
they had one
yeah.
of those lamps like a Twinkie light that they would use in the old days to light the best example I can think of is Scarlett O'Hara. There's a shot in Gone with the Wind where they sort of matte down the lighting a bit and you can see just her eyes are lit up. And they would use Twinkie lights and it would be on a wand, you
Hmm.
know. Um, a flex thing, and they would have
Right.
it near the camera so that it would highlight their eyes, for whatever reason. But this was under the camera. It came under the camera to light up here and flatten out the double chin that was developing.
Yeah.
But he was
Yeah.
always jowly. If you
He
go back
was.
and look at the first couple of movies he did, he was very thin. But he always his face was always fuller than the rest of his body, sort of thing. So I'm not saying that with Under Siege that he was like getting fat, although he was in an apron. But he was always kind of jolly, and then he was starting to develop thickness here that had to be smoothed out.
Yeah, and that was an Andy Davis project, and Tommy Lee Jones is in that too. Although Tommy Lee,
Yes.
notoriously difficult, as the Clint
Yeah.
Eastwood team will tell
He's
you.
a great, the movies he does though. I mean, he delivers the goods. He was
And
like
Davis has worked with him more
package.
than once, so
Yeah,
obviously they somehow snap together.
they
Um,
must.
They
Or
must.
maybe, or maybe Tommy was just too good for the thing. Well, Tommy probably, although the package was before The Fugitive,
Hmm.
and Tommy got the Oscar for The Fugitive. And then, of course, he started playing Detective Gerard in every movie after that.
Yeah,
Remember when he
yeah,
did Volcano? Volcano, I think, was the very next movie. And and he's in charge of all the logistics for this thing. And I want you to go over here, and I want you to go over here, and I want you to block the road, and you do
yeah.
this. And his name is Dr. Richard Kimball. Okay. And that's
Exactly,
what it felt
exactly.
like. It felt like every scene he was doing Lieutenant Gerard, you
Every
know?
truck stop, doghouse, and roadhouse. Yeah, he's got
Outhouse,
like
whorehouse, outhouse. Yeah.
double Jeopardy, all those
Yeah.
movies where he's like in his Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah.
But
Thank
I know
goodness
that
he doesn't do that in No Country for Old Men.
he
I mean,
doesn't. He doesn't. I mean,
that
I
movie's
look.
a monumental achievement for everybody involved.
Well,
It's just such a good movie.
it is good, isn't it?
Yeah.
We were talking about how I was in my office there outside the Warner Brothers coffee shop or Central Perk, and the Clint Eastwood guys walked by and sat with me for a bit, and they were telling
Oh,
because they
that's
were in
right,
Building
Joel
81.
Joel
Yeah,
Cox and Mike Cipriano. Yeah.
yeah. Cipriano, I think's retired. I think Cox is retired. Cox has done this show, but before he got the Oscar. So this
Well,
obviously this
he's
show
in the
was the
wine
trick.
business now, though, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He
Okay.
is. He's in the wine recreational business. I think he did quite well. He was editing for Eastwood going back to Josie Wales, and
Yeah.
they had the first floor in our building, 81, basically for their
Yeah.
post. But yeah, they were saying how difficult Tommy Lee was. They actually, and that's unusual for those guys to confess that. And that led us to
Well, whatever conversation you had, they probably just came out of the cutting room having spent 3 hours with Tommy Lee Jones on their screens. You
yeah,
know, it's like when we would do dailies, we did a whole bunch of movies. This is where I developed my antipathy for Tommy Lee Jones was it's not real, it's just imaginary.
yeah.
But we go bing, 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 all these movies in a row with Tommy Lee Jones, and you're spending every afternoon with Tommy Lee Jones, bitching and moaning about something because there's no soft Tommy Lee Jones movies. There's no romantic comedies. It's the hard edge Tommy Lee Jones being Tommy Lee Jones all the time in every one of his
You're
movies.
saying Black Moon Rising isn't a romantic comedy?
I
I
didn't
guess
we
I
didn't do
watched it in the
that.
wrong context. No, I know
We
we
didn't
didn't.
do that. I don't know. I wasn't mine. But we did the in the Valley of the Law, The Fugitive, Under
Yeah.
Siege, um, Space Cowboys. I'm sure there's other movies in between there. I mean, it seemed like he was always around. But then we did the same thing. We had a whole bunch of Jack Nicholson movies all in a row too. The Departed and Bucket List.
The
I'm trying to
difference
think.
being, of course,
Well,
as we
no,
will
but we
attest
got
to,
sick. We got sick to death of watching Jack too. It's like,
I know you got sick of them, but I'll tell you at the end of the day, I've never met anyone who had a bad Jack Nicholson working experience.
no, you know what? Well, Tommy Lee Jones is a solid pro too, but he's
Yes.
hard. He's hard.
Yeah.
Jack is soft. Jack is nice. He's polite. He wants to meet everybody and say hello. Like there's no anonymous visitors to the set. He wants to know who they are, and he wants
I
to say hello to them, you
Yeah, and
know?
he wants to say hello to be courteous. And to
Yeah.
like be engaging, which is remarkable when you think about it. But I love that footage that Vivian Kubrick got of him on The Shining, featuring our buddy Leon Vitali,
Leon, yeah, yeah.
who cast the little boy. Rest in peace, Leon. We love you and we miss you. But and he and Vivian Kubrick shooting him, and it's like a end of a 16, 18 hour day, and Kubrick's assistant hands him like a phone book worth of notes and goes, "Hey Jack, Stanley would like to know if you'd review these before we start tomorrow." And he's like, "Oh, that's great, Agnes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for this, Agnes. I was just asking myself what I was going to do between 2 and 4 in the morning." And she just, even the assistant's laughing,
Yeah.
it's just like he takes the notes and he does
Stanley,
it.
I'm with you 100%. All the way. I'm with you 100%, but I kind of fade at take 80.
Yeah. I generally break when we reach take 120. But it means so much more to hear it in that way, right?
Yeah.
When he puts it to you
Yeah.
like that and shows that he's still with the production and he's still with the vision, but you're kind of
Well,
pressing it.
Jack was a writer when he came to town.
That's
He
right.
started in the business as a writer, and he is a writer, and a perfect illustration of his skill as a writer is that story that Matt Damon tells from The Departed. I
Yes.
I suggest anybody who's interested in that story go catch it on YouTube because you and I could never do justice to that story.
No, it's an incredibly insightful, technique-driven story about acting that few of us even think about.
Yeah,
And he said, Damon said, and Damon, by the way, is a good guy to work with too.
yeah,
He was
yeah,
hilarious on Saturday Night Live recently.
yeah,
But he said that it was like a clinic. I mean, Damon had done what, 30, 40 movies by this time? But it was like a clinic. And he said Nicholson got it from working with Roger Corman in the early days because it was all about time. And he just broke down this remarkable,
yeah,
like, set
yeah.
experience where
I
Nicholson
could
gave
do,
all
yeah.
these editorial
Yeah,
options.
it
Yeah.
was, I could do that, but what if? I mean, and everything was, well, I could do that, but what if?
Yeah.
And then it builds it, so it doesn't become just one simple scene. It becomes one scene rolling into another, into another, into another, and then
Yeah.
it fucks with your head because, the final thing being, gee, it sort of felt funny as if he's done this before, I mean, it's like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's really,
and that's the
it's
thing.
hyper intelligent.
That's the thing, especially with The Departed, because Jack was playing a psycho,
Hmm.
and you didn't have a good time sitting there every day. It felt like we were bringing these people into the office, and not just that, but even when Harold Ramis was doing those comedies, analyze this and analyze that. Because the rest of the Goombas in those movies are gangsters, and you feel like you're spending your afternoon with these people. You want to change your clothes and take a shower when you come out of the dailies on that. And it's take after take after take in a lot of these instances, you
We
know?
did we did learn a lot in those days, didn't we? What was from some of the people we were fortunate enough to have at Warner Brothers.
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny because we talked about Clint Eastwood, the low tolerance for some of us with Tommy Lee Jones, and of course we actually got this far into the program without mentioning Steven Seagal. But there it is. There it
There it
is.
is. Yeah,
There,
yeah,
there it is. There
yeah.
it is. So we always have to work in our experience with
And
Steven
there
Seagal.
was the Laura Linney thing on the that show in England. And again, you remembered
Yeah.
the name of the guy, and I Parkinson. Was it Parkinson or was
No,
it?
it's Graham Norton.
Oh, Graham Norton. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, I'm dating myself. Parkinson. Yeah, where Laura Linney talked about how because he had mentioned that, oh, you did something with Clint Eastwood. We were talking earlier, and you're talking about like how he comports himself on the set, and she was describing how like whatever they were working out blocking wise and performance notes or whatever rehearsal they might have
Hmm.
had on the set. Clint's like, okay, are you ready to go then? Are you all set? Okay, good. Okay, with the same sort of tone, you know. Okay, okay. Well, we're gonna roll and we're gonna get sound going and just go ahead and go whenever you're ready. And then when it's over, he's not yelling action, and he's not and then when it's over, he's not screaming cut, 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 cut. He's saying, okay, how did you feel about that? Does that feel good to you? I mean, does that work for you? How did that work for the camera operator? Did everything work? Okay, that's that. And then she explained it was because when he did those cheapo spaghetti westerns in the 60s, um, clapping the board and yelling cut and yelling action and all that stuff would frighten horses,
So
and you had
I've
to
seen,
you had to keep
uh,
them calm.
yeah, good move. I've seen Eastwood talk about Sergio Leone and those movies, and one of the things that kind of I felt was humorous was Leone's ability to work around a limited budget. And one of the things he would do is, I guess, when they were shooting, you had to take like Catholic holidays off or something.
Well, because they were doing them in Italy and Spain, yeah. So
Right. But at one point, he realized that Dino De Laurentiis, the production company, had a crane. And of course, Leone was envious and wanted to borrow it. So he's like, "Can I use your crane?" And he's like, "No, no one can use it. There's the holiday. We're not allowed to shoot. You're not allowed to shoot." And he's like, "That's okay because we're actually a Jewish production." And, and Eastwood was saying that he would do tricks like that to get the crane for a day. And it worked. It worked. And Eastwood, of course, when Eastwood opens up, we both think Eastwood's tremendously gracious. He was very easy to be around the lot. And when he would open up, he would tell fascinating, independent minded production stories that were really fun. And I think a lot of that stuck with him, and Lenny I think Laura Linney worked with him a couple of times.
Yeah, I'm sure she did. I know she's been on a lot. I've seen her.
But we
I,
love that Matt Damon story though about you know, I have an idea. And when you say like when she does it,
oh yeah. Can I do another one? I have an idea. Oh, you wanna waste everybody's time?
yeah, yeah.
I mean, talking about deflating somebody. I mean, just sticking a needle right in them and watching the air go out, you know?
Jeremy, yeah, yeah. It's like he finally gets an idea and he wants to take three, and Eastwood's like, "Oh, really?" Like, just shames him. Like, you want to now waste everybody's time. Ratchford told a funny story too. He was on Jersey Boys and he had done Unforgiven with him, and he's doing this take, and he's like, bang, 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 bang. He's like this guy talking to the Jersey Boys, and Eastwood says, "Okay, now give me another one," and so Ratchford does it again, and at the end of it, he goes, "Let me guess." He says everything, 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 and he slips in "I bet you want to make my day over this." And Eastwood they yell cut, and Eastwood looks at him and goes, "You got it in there, huh?" Like Eastwood wasn't even surprised when he said. He's just like, "You got it in there, huh?" But I don't know if it made the film or not, but it was a funny
Probably
story.
not, because I don't think he would want to cross-pollinate Harry Potter's or Harry
No.
Callahan stuff. Harry Potter, right? Harry Callahan stuff with whatever project he was doing. Did you know when Warner Brothers came out with that boxed set? It's a small box of the Dirty Harry movies.
Hmm.
And I didn't know this until I got it. I mean, I've had it for more than a decade. Um, it comes with all the Blu-rays in their individual little packets, but thinner versions of the clamshells, and it comes with a booklet. Um, I don't remember what was in the booklet, extolling all the
Yeah.
all the development of Harry Callahan, but it also comes with a little wallet and a San Francisco badge and a ID card that Inspector Harry Callahan. I swear to God.
I think that's awesome.
I
I think
wonder how
that's
many
awesome.
people carry that and whip it out. And
I remember Milius telling me that like inspector isn't even a real rank, but it just kind of fit. But
it may not be here, but I have a cousin who's an inspector in Ireland,
yeah.
the
Well, there
the
you
the
go.
guard in
It's used
Ireland.
somewhere, I'm sure, but I mean, I would ask Milius like, "Hey, do you know they think this is a fascist movie?" And he goes, "Trust me, we didn't have any of those thoughts when we were doing it. We just said this is the movie."
Yeah.
But and there's so many great because my old boss did an uncredited draft on Dirty Harry and then wrote Magnum Force, which is actually my favorite one of the series. But the
Which one? The
cast,
first one
no, the
or
second one, Magnum Force,
Magnum
with Tim
Force?
Matheson, David Soul, when all those
Yeah, the
guys
the
pop
the
up.
rogue cops. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and we were talking about how this obviously one of the stories we told the other day was when I'm in Milius's office because he would work till 10 at night or 11 at night sometimes, and he lights up a cigar, non-smoking building, and the security guy like rolled into the office because he clearly had to tell him 10 times not to smoke. And Milius takes it out like a tough teenager in detention. He's like, "What? Like, what are you gonna do?" And he's like, "It's not me. If it was up to me, you could smoke it all night, but they're working tonight." And he's like, "Who's here?" And he was like, "Below, they're doing blood work, Eastwood." And that's when I met Clint. Milius just said, "Well, let's go see him."
Oh
And
yeah,
we were
yeah. I remember
laughing
you
because
telling me this before.
they shot a lot of the blood work chase on the back lot. They hung these panels, and Kakai Umpa was on that too, by the way. And we got to meet Clint in between takes, and when they called him away, it was actually a pretty relaxed experience. They were like, "Clint, we're ready for you now." And he gets up and he's like, "Excuse me, I have to kill some guys." But what's funny though is Clint, like Milius is blowing cigar smoke. Eastwood's a vegan. They're not getting out of each other's space. They still love to see each other, but they're not breaking habits for either one of them. It was just kind of a
Right,
unique sort
right.
of a visual, but it did make the case that we thought Eastwood was pretty easy to work with. I didn't work with him. You did. I thought he was pretty easy to be
Well,
around.
he's prepared. I mean, he's prepared.
Very.
It's all in the preparation. He gets there, knows what he wants to do, and he does it.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't want to interrupt the conversation here, but on both sides of the video feed here, every now and again, I'm seeing these,
I don't see
your
that. What
head
is
will
it?
go like that, and mine will
Huh.
at different times, not at the same times as each other. I just wanted to point that out to you in case there's another glitch.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, no, I just want you
This
to
looks good
know.
here.
I just want you to know so that you
Yeah.
don't get, finished and say, oh my God, another 2 hours. Now
No,
I got to do it
no.
again.
Well, I will tell you, you make the cut every time, Bill, because there's a lot of guests where we would have them on and there'd be a technical glitch and be like, ah, fuck that. We're not doing that over. But with Bill Daly, you want to get because it's such a good, candid conversation about what people want to hear. In fact, one of the things that was unique in our previous conversations, you were talking about your relationship with James Earl Jones, which I actually knew nothing about.
Yes. Yeah, because I did Gabriel's Fire. I did the premiere. I did not the premiere. I did the pilot
Yeah.
in Chicago. This was in I was with Lorimar. This is the Lorimar thing. This is I my first day. I had to go there on February 1st, 1990. And I was there until like the middle of April. So I saw the winter, the worst part of the winter in
Right.
Chicago. And I would go. I had this thing with I was the production auditor, and I had to go. They had instituted this policy because of the IRS about you couldn't pay the cast cash for you couldn't pay anybody cash for their per diem.
Right.
And I'm not going to get into the technicalities of all that, but what I did with the cast was I would um, I would cut a check for them, and then I would take it to the set, and I'd get them to sign it, and then I give them the cash in an envelope. So the first 3 weeks or so, and we do this weekly. I do it on Thursdays. Um, First 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going out to the set and I'm meeting with James and I'm giving him money, and then at some point after that, I go to the set for a different reason, and probably because I wanted to, because I like the whole process of production. I like it. I like to be around it. But I'd gone to the set, and somebody tried to introduce me to James, and James is like, "Oh yes, I know Bill. Every time I see Bill, he gives me money, you
Yeah.
know."
Well,
And
instant
and it's
friendship.
funny. Then his agent called me late in the production, called me and said, "Don't give him cash. Don't give him his per diem while he's out on the set." Okay, because he's sending runners out to buy lottery tickets. Illinois had just started doing the lottery. Okay, and James Earl Jones was buying lottery tickets with
All right.
his per diem.
I would argue that he already won the lottery, but whatever.
Well, whatever. It's
If
he
it's something
was.
he enjoys, go for it.
And while we were there, while we were in our production period, the release of The Hunt for Red October happened, and it played in a theater that was attached to the backside of the hotel. I mean, the buildings backed up to each other. So behind our hotel was the triplex equivalent of the Avco in Westwood. And all three screens were being taken up with The Hunt for Red October. So so a bunch of us, we all got together and said, "Hey, we were going to go see the movie," and we invited James. He said, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'll come." And then he had to work late that night, so he didn't come. We all did, but he wanted his wife, Cece, and their son Flynn were coming to town to be with him. So I get it. I don't begrudge him not coming to the theater with
Right.
us. Um, and it was funny because the DP um, went to the 35 millimeter presentation, and the rest of us went to the 70 millimeter presentation. And the reason the DP went to the 35 is because it was shot in 35 and it wasn't blown up. It was the native format that the film was shot in. We went to the 70 millimeter because we were enamored with the bigger picture, and it was more the sound. 70 millimeter was all about the six-track magnetic sound, which is superior to optical sound. But 70 millimeter has pretty much gone away, not 100%, but it's gone away because Dolby Digital took over, and the separation because of digital is better the the mag. I mean, the mag will sound better to your ears, but those prints wear out very quickly. So,
You
um,
um, you also said that James Earl Jones said he was impressed with Alec Baldwin on that.
he loved Alec Baldwin. He kept saying, "You got to watch this kid. You got to watch this kid that's in this movie." And we were from Lorimar. We knew him because he was in Falcon Crest. So
Yeah,
we knew
he
who he
worked for
was.
years prior to that. I mean, he's in tons of movies prior to
He's in
that,
a
and
lot of
he's
things,
good.
but not,
He wasn't the star.
this was a big movie. This was a big
Yeah.
movie that everybody was going to go see, and it wasn't because of Alec Baldwin. It was Sean Connery they were going to go see this,
Well,
and
that was the
and they
story.
surrounded Sean Connery with Richard Jordan
Yeah.
and James L. Jones, of course.
Scott Glenn,
Um, there's other people,
Sam,
I'm sure.
Sam Neill, Scott
Oh
Glenn,
yeah, Sam Neill, um,
Tim
um,
Curry. My buddy Sven Thorson shows
Peter
up in it.
Firth, Peter
Yeah.
Firth, who was famous from having done Equus, the original Equus on stage in London and then New
Hmm.
York. And I was shocked when I saw him in the movie because he was bald. I mean he didn't age well. I didn't think Peter Firth aged well, particularly. Not that he was Brad Pitt when he was younger, but it's kind of and then Connery, his character, just, he murders him in
Yeah.
like the second scene you see the guy in, and they go off on their adventure, and I mean, what a movie! What a
And
movie! And
yeah,
and
and I first saw Firth. He did a film for a buddy of mine, Toby Hooper, Life Force, and he's good in it. He was
uh-huh,
good in it. It wasn't a good movie, but he
yeah,
was good in it.
yeah.
And that scene is very convincing. He's got that. It's funny because McTiernan does these things. He's obsessed with language and reality. So he'll do transitions from the Russian to the English. He did it in the 13th Warrior from like the Norwegian or Scandinavian into English. He does these things. And that's that scene where he starts talking and the camera pulls in
Did
and
he
it
do
pulls out.
Valkyrie? Oh no, no, that was Bryan
No, that's
Singer.
Brian
Because you have the
Singer.
same thing where it's in German. It's all in German, and it transitions very neatly
Yeah.
into English.
Yeah.
That was
Which makes
Bryan
sense
Singer
for
who
some
did
of
that.
us.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
did McTiernan work with Tom Cruise on anything
I'm
that you
trying
can
to
think of?
think. Well, we also
He did
talked about
Die Hard. We talked
he
about how he
did.
had done Die Hard, you
Which
know?
everyone we know from the Die Hard production loved working with him, though he did do some time related to the Pelicano case later.
Yeah, I know he was in legal trouble with that. I don't even know what the story was, and I don't know. I remember reading about it, and I think Pelicano himself went to jail, and he did a Gordon Liddy where he didn't give up on anybody. He's doing more time than anybody else because he didn't cooperate. That sort of thing. It's a pity. It's a pity that they felt the need to have to resort to whatever those tactics were
Yeah, I
to
agree.
achieve the end that they needed. It's just movies.
Yeah.
It's just movies. We're not doing brain surgery on infants, you know?
It was shocking to hear what they went through and why they went through it. Like a lot of us were scratching our heads going, You wasted your time. What?
Yeah.
But uh it's God, I had something speaking of G. Gordon Liddy, because you just mentioned him, I remember John
Oh,
Milius telling me,
I don't want to go
no,
there.
no, we're not getting into it, of
Yeah.
course, but and it's so funny because he's portrayed as an idiot in all these like HBO shows when they do these time
Yeah.
capsule concepts. But I remember Milius says he met G. Gordon Liddy once, and G. Gordon Liddy says, I want to go shooting because Milius is obviously a gun enthusiast. And Milius is like, well, are you allowed to own any guns? And G. Gordon Liddy's response is, well, G. Gordon Liddy isn't allowed to own any guns, but G. Gordon Liddy's wife has a fantastic collection of firearms. Just like the laws are so
Oh, that's
like,
pretty funny.
uh,
That's pretty
but
funny. Yeah.
we had talked also about one of the things you had pointed out that James Earl Jones said to you, which was semi-fascinating, was the big briefing scene where they had done a
Yeah.
casting switch
Yes. It was
and
Klaus Maria
Baldwin didn't know.
Brandauer.
Yeah.
The Ramius was Klaus Maria Brandauer up to the time when they were doing this presentation, and Alec had done at least one day already doing that presentation, and they put up the slide, and it's Klaus Maria Brandauer, and nobody told Alec that he wasn't in it anymore, and they cast Sean Connery, and he's doing the slides, and the slide goes up, and he looks, and then he became tongue-tied because of his Sean Connery, you
Yeah.
know.
You think someone would have
Yeah,
tipped
and
him
James Earl
off?
Jones was talking about that, and he said, I wasn't alone because we were sitting in a car, and I know there were two drivers in the car, and the two of us, and because we were doing local locations in Chicago in the winter, so we'd get in the car to stay warm, and um, and I loved hanging out with James Earl Jones because he was fascinating, just a fascinating guy. We had these
Yeah.
conversations, and he didn't believe me. Now, we didn't talk about this yesterday. I told him, I saw you on Broadway, with the Great White Hope, and he goes, "Oh, get out of
Yeah.
here, go get out
Yeah.
of here." And I said, "No, I grew up outside Philadelphia. My grade school yard, our playground yard there was close to a train station, and we could see the posters. They would have Broadway show posters on the train station platform,
Yeah.
along the railings and stuff. And we could see them from a schoolyard. I remember seeing My Fair Lady. I remember West Side Story, seeing the posters for the Broadway show. And we knew everything, not so when I was in high school, certainly. We knew what all the Broadway shows were because we would go up to New York to see them. And when I was in college, I was dating a girl that was at the American Academy. She had aspirations in um, in the field of acting, in show business, and so I knew everything. I saw everything that was up there, and they used to see. They would get invited to stuff if there were extra tickets and stuff, or if there were going to be ultra cheap tickets for a particular
Yeah.
show. It was on a bulletin board, and they could get the tickets and they could go. And that's why I was in New York when they're doing 3 Days of Condor, and that's how I ended up in front of um,
That's
Robert
today's
Redford,
fun
and
fact. That's Bill Daly shows up in 3 Days of the Condor. Excellent movie, by the way. Some would argue it's excellent because Bill Daly makes an appearance in it.
No, you don't
Uh,
see me though. You never see me because and I asked Sidney Pollack about it. They did three takes that I remember. It could have been more. It wasn't less. It wasn't less than three takes. And we're just milling around because we are a crowd, and it's the entrance to the New York Times building, which is off of Times Square. Times
yeah.
Square was named after the New York Times. Okay, so the New York Times building's at Times Square, but it's west. It's on West 42nd Street, closer to 8th Avenue. Um, and so we're milling around, and in the background behind us is Times Square. So we're people waiting to cross the light. We don't have any business to do. We're just there, and we're in coats and stuff. And and a truck pulls up and blocks all of us out, not just me, all of us. The whole group of us all
Uh-oh.
got blocked out, and you don't see us in the movie. And um, and that's what's in the movie.
What did Sydney say about it?
Well, it wasn't. I didn't complain specifically about that. I did ask him though. Like I was kind of playing dumb, and part of me wasn't entirely sure. But I asked him, You directed 3 Days of Condor, didn't you?" He goes, "Yeah, yeah, I did." That was Mark Solomon and I hijacked him in a restaurant. We were going to see
Oh,
Michael Clayton.
right, right. Is this the
We
interpreter
were
story? Is this the interpreter?
Well,
Yeah.
that was part of it, yeah. But we were screening for an audience to get cards, Michael Clayton, and Sidney was in it, but he's also one of the producers. And it was at the ArcLight in Pasadena, and there was an islands right across. They have the entrance to the theater, and then you go like this way coming out of the theater, and there's an islands. Not anymore, but there was. And
Hmm.
so Mark and I got to the theater. We parked. We saw that there was. We saw the audience was in line. People were getting ready to go in. We had time. We went into Islands. They didn't have any tables anywhere. And Mark asked, "Well, can we sit at the bar? Are there seats at the bar?" And I go, "Oh yeah, you can." And there were two seats open. one on each side of Sidney Pollack.
Couldn't arrange it better.
So
Couldn't have arranged it
Mark
better.
sits on one side, I sit on the other side. Mark said something to Sidney, and I didn't hear it. But he said something to Sidney, and Sidney suddenly got this alarmed look on his face. And Mark started laughing and said, "No, we're with the studio. Don't worry about us." You know.
Funny.
And then we started talking. I mean, Sidney was fascinating. You know, it's these. I love these high achieving people that I get to meet a lot of
Mhm.
times. You
Which
know,
he was.
like James Earl Jones and him and Ted
Yeah.
Turner. You know, I
Yes.
love just talking to these people and kind of it just fascinates me. But you know, I do the same thing with foreigners. You know, Amy Harrington was always like appalled. We'd have to travel somewhere and usually to these screenings out of town, and we'd get a cab driver. I know specifically in Chicago, we had a Pakistani cab driver and I could see the guy's name on his license, you know, and stuff like that. I'd start a conversation with him, you know,
Fascinating.
you know, it's
Yeah.
like
No,
say,
I get it. I get it. I do
Ashman,
that too.
Ashman,
Yeah.
have you been here long? You know, how do you like it here? How long have you been driving the taxi?
Yeah.
I imagine the traffic here is kind of heavy, and he's going, no, it's worse in Pakistan, it's worse in Karachi, it's this, it's that, you know, and I just strike up these conversations, and she would ask me, why are you doing that? And it was like I'm just fascinated by these people who have a different life experience than I do, and I'm not likely to go to Pakistan sometime. I'm not against it, but I'm not likely to go there.
Correct.
So I'm, you know, like curious about it, you know? So, the same thing. So when I'm talking to James Earl Jones, I'm like asking him about, you know, so I'd seen him on Broadway and oh, get out of here. And no, I saw it. And then I saw it when you left the show. I just saw it a second time
Yeah.
with, oh, his name is escaping me now. Yaphet Kotto. I saw it with Yaphet Kotto as well. And then James starts telling me the
Gold.
difference in performances that they had. Oh, yes. Well, Yaphet had this slightly different interpretation. And it was, and that's a golden conversation. You can't, who else has a
Yes.
conversation
Yes.
like that? And with James Earl Jones,
And I
you
was a
know?
fan of both those actors.
And yeah, I saw them both doing the same part. And then, you know, and I have a lot of Broadway stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw
Well,
Candide a bunch of times.
I
I saw Henry Fonda
hold up,
doing
hold up.
several different one-man shows, you know?
We're going down the black hole of
Yeah,
Broadway on
I
this.
know.
But I first of all, I'll give you like a sort of an unrenowned credit of James Earl Jones. I loved him opposite Robert Shaw in Swashbuckler when I was in first grade.
How long has it been since you've seen this kind of adventure? How long has it been since you've seen this kind of action? How long has it been since you've had this much fun? How long has it been since you've seen a swashbuckler? Now, Universal presents the biggest, grandest pirate film of all time, Swashbuckler, starring Robert Shaw.
There she goes, my friend! There she goes!
James Earl Jones.
What kept you? Come on, you crazy fool!
Jean-Pierre Bugeaud.
That's number one. Never get provoked, girl. Oh! That's number two, girl. Never fight fair when you're fighting for your life. Lesson number three, girl. Never raise that sword to me again unless you're prepared to die for it.
All your lands and property are herewith forfeit to the crown. Your dear wife and charming daughter can find themselves a new home in whatever slum appeals to them.
Peter Boyle is the treacherous Lord Durant.
Your blows have a certain crude force, but they lack any real style.
Oh, do they, sir?
Jeffrey Holder is the mysterious Cujo. And Bo Bridges is Major Folly.
I'll see you hang, engines! I think it'll have to be by a very long rope.
Swashbuckler. A A story of pirates, those on the high seas, and those in high places.
Now, Lynch! I want your answer now!
What could be more exciting?
Jump!
What could be more romantic? What could be more fun than a swashbuckler? Come and enjoy the biggest, grandest pirate adventure of all time. Swashbuckler.
But you were with. All right. So now, back to the detective's room. You were the interrogation room, rather. You're in an islands.
Islands at the bar.
At the bar with Sidney Pollack.
Sidney Pollack, yeah. And I go, and then once I got a little bit comfortable, talking to him, and I didn't want him to feel like he was being interrogated. And I was actually talking to Sidney a lot more than Mark was. Okay, and I had more to say, And so I asked him, so well, you did 3 days at the Condor, didn't you? And he said, yeah, I did that. And I said, yeah, I thought you did. I was an extra in that. And he's really, and I said, yeah, I was in college. And my girlfriend and I already had a SAG card because the extras are SAG in New York. I had a SAG card. So yeah, I was an extra in that. And he goes, and this, I can't do it quite the way he did it, but he said, oh, well, good for you. But he didn't mean, that wasn't a snide remark. He was talking about, here I am, I'm a senior. I start out as an extra in this.
No, I know. It's funny because that could be interpreted different ways, but I know he was saying it like,
he was
good
saying,
job.
oh man, look at where you are. I mean, that's so cool. Look at where you are. Although he didn't say it that way,
Yeah.
But that's the way I interpreted it.
He didn't say it the way editor Dennis Verkler would say it to his
yes,
crew.
Yeah. Oh, you found the men's room, did you? Good for you.
Oh, you're here. Good for you.
Oh, I've got my Dennis Verkler look today. I've got.
Oh, that's right. You are. Rest in peace, Dennis. We miss you. I love Dennis Verkler, by the way.
Enough. I mean, I can see the feedback on it. I can see my picture here, and I look pretty pale, but I'm nothing compared to Dennis. And I kid all the time. I tell people I can't go out in the sun. I can't sit out on your patio with you because I get sunburned from flash pictures. Well, he really does. Okay.
Yeah. Look, Verkler struck fear in all kinds of people, but I loved him. He was so funny.
I did too.
But anyway, let's not get out. You can't contain the conversation. Yeah. So you're finally talking to Pollack, and you get a moment to ask him a question that has been on your mind, which is.
Oh well, once I've drawn him in with, I didn't intend this. It was just I was running out of things to talk about, and then I asked him. The interpreter, were you guys on an accelerated schedule or anything like that? Were you chasing release date? And he goes, no. And I asked it in two different ways. I said the interpreter this, and then was it rushed? Were you chasing a release? No. He didn't take the bait. He didn't say, well, why you asking?
So let's just take a moment to appreciate Psychology 101. Because that is how the pros do it. Like, they don't give you your in with the follow-up. It's just no.
Yeah. No,
because what you really wanted to know is why did it suck or the sound or something?
Well, he didn't need to hear that from me because I'm sure he read the reviews. And
sure.
It's not a particularly good movie, but I thought the sound job on it was really bad.
For a guy who had done what he had done, it was a step down.
Yeah. I don't know where it failed. I don't know where the team failed him. I'm not going to blame him for the failure. But I just felt like, and the thing is that I knew the sound, I knew the supervising sound editor. I knew him. He was based in Universal, and I knew the mixers. They were from, and it was done at Universal. I knew the people, and I knew they were capable of doing like a really, really good job. So
and if
that's
I'm not mistaken,
why I wondered if it was a rush job.
And if I'm not mistaken, it was done in our building.
No, it was done. Oh, in your building. Yeah, could be. Yeah, could be.
But I got to tell you, that's gold when he just answers and doesn't.
No, he just
doesn't follow up. Not why. Why do you ask? No, he doesn't want to hear the why. But I'm so glad you had that moment with him. I love, I just saw him recently in an old interview talking to Harrison Ford, who we had at Warner Brothers for Firewall. You probably had him for a few things, but I remember him
Yeah,
there for Firewall.
yeah.
And
No, that's the only thing I think I worked on him with, And
he got Ford to open up.
there was an opportunity because we would meet so we would screen these for audiences, and
Yeah.
then we would all meet the next day in Robinoff's conference room. And more often than not, I would find myself sitting next to the most powerful person in the room. And I don't mean Jeff. Okay. So in
Yeah.
that particular case, this chair right here was Harrison Ford.
Hmm.
Okay. When we did the Ricky Gervais movie, exact same chairs. Here, I'm right next to Ricky Gervais. Okay,
Yeah.
so I have a chance if I want to talk afterwards and stuff. And your old boss, Carol D'Antuono, was the
Yes.
post supervisor on that. She got to go out drinking with all those guys after the screening.
You know why? Because D'Antuono was great company, super smart and very
Yes.
charismatic and fun. Brilliant,
She's a
brilliant.
great companion. She
Yeah.
really is. And if you need a drinking buddy, she's the one.
Yeah. She was
But
so,
she
so
got to do that.
gracious.
I mean, it's not that, like I knew they were doing that. I don't know why I didn't go. I mean, I would have loved, but apparently Harrison really can drink everybody on the table sort of thing. And everybody was feeling a little, um, felt a lot better that morning than they did the morning after.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I used to sit next to Ridley Scott whenever we had those things too, you know.
Yeah.
I
I
used
want to get
to
to
I just
what?
thought
Go.
about this. I just thought about this last night. I would go to our staff meetings with
Yeah.
Steve Papazian, and Steve would go off on tangents, not quite like I do, but he'd go off on a tangent. And we would sit there and we'd have our agenda notes in front of us, our production status reports in front of us. And Steve would start on one of the tangents. And as soon as his head would come down, like when he finished a thought or something like that, my finger was on his agenda pointing to the next item.
Hmm.
Okay.
Smart.
And people were noticing it. I would hear tittering, I'd see people winking at me, because I was helping to accelerate the pace of the
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
That was
Get out
my
of there.
thing,
Yeah. Right.
and I got sick of listening to Steve with this stuff, but and it was so funny to watch these other people who they were higher on the food chain than I was. And it was funny to see them looking at me like, man, that guy, look at that way he just manipulates.
You know what? I mean, well, we don't have meetings to have meetings. We have meetings to get the objectives handled. And it's
Yeah.
funny because like there's this culture of like, let's meet. Well, let's meet again and let's meet again. It's like, no, this is the meeting. Let's get it all worked out. Was Papazi, first of all, I should say about Carol Deltuano, if you want to know how cool she was, she let me cast an independent movie when I was a PA out of her office
Wow,
on the
that's good.
weekends. That's how cool she
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
But getting to Steve Papazian, was he the guy? Was he the shitty Fox budget guy?
Yeah. The
I
Shitty Fox
told that
movie.
story
The
to
Shitty
somebody.
Fox movie.
Yeah, shitty Fox movie. I told that story over dinner with a bunch of Disney guys recently. I said, "Oh God, what?" They were laughing about funny executive meetings, and I said, "I got one
Yeah.
for you from Bill Daly," and it was the shitty. You should tell it because the audience is going to wonder what we're talking about, and it's your
Well,
story, not
we
mine.
were in this meeting. Yeah, what's funny though is Ravi Mehta was in that meeting too, and Ravi's now the head of worldwide
Yes,
production for Fox for
right.
20th Century now. 20th Century,
Hmm.
it's part of Disney. But so we're in our Tuesday meeting where we would get together every Tuesday morning. We'd get together with creative development
Yeah.
and Jeff Robinoff's group and the lawyers, and um, and go over our production status, all the movies, the status. And we had a production status report, which we used as an agenda for all these meetings.
Hmm.
So Jeff comes into the meeting. We're all there. Jeff comes in. Jeff was not like that. I mean, he didn't come late to stuff, but he was a little bit late for this thing. And he came in. He had just gotten off the phone with somebody or something, and he has his budget, and he puts it on the table and he slides it across. And the way I described this before was the tables were double wide. Okay. which I wondered. I often wondered if that was on purpose because they were wide enough that you couldn't stand up, reach over, and slap anybody.
Yes, it is
Okay,
on purpose. It is on
so
purpose.
so um, so he pushes this budget over to Steve all the way down because it's a big square table and Jeff's at one end and pushes it all the way to the other. They're opposite each other. They are the furthest away from each other that
Right.
you get. And he pushes the thing and he goes, Steve, I got this budget from Fox. And Steve's looking at it. Um, and I mean, he's not looking at every line, but he's going through it,
Yeah.
and it's not taking more than like 2 minutes. You can figure out where you're going with the budget that quickly. And he's a very quick study. So Steve, how come we can't do a movie like this? And Steve pushes it back to him and says, we can do a movie like this, but then we have a shitty box movie.
And that may be one of the Hall of Fame all-time great
I know. I
executive
mean,
responses.
let me tell you, it's on my Hall of Fame too. You know, it was just,
To
oh
be
my
so
God.
frank is just so reassuring and so funny. It's just, oh my gosh. I just told that story to a bunch of guys from Disney. They were all swapping like crazy executive moments. And I do remember that Tuesday was the big feature development meeting at Warner's.
Yeah. Well, we would have every department would meet internally on
Mhm.
Monday. The first question of the day on Monday morning was, what did you see this weekend? Because we were expected to go out and see what the competition was doing.
Right.
Absolutely.
You
We were
still
in
do
this
that.
business. I I have AMC A-List and Regal
Hmm.
Unlimited. I've seen 38 movies, I think was the last count on Letterboxd. I'll log them when I get home. I'll
Yeah.
log what I've seen them, and then at the end of every month, they tell me how many I saw this month and how many I've seen this year.
Have you
So
seen Sheep Detectives yet?
yes, I have. I
Pretty
recommend
fun.
it.
I
It's really
recommend it
sweet.
too.
It's really, really
Yeah,
sweet. I
yeah.
liked it. Yeah.
It's
Um,
it's a good movie to forget your
Michael,
stress.
Michael's a really good movie. It doesn't get into all that stuff. And I'm at that age where I'm not really a fan.
Hmm.
I'm aware of him. I know some of the songs. I I heard songs in the movie as he's doing them and recording them, and it was like, oh, I didn't know that was Michael Jackson. I mean, I was familiar with the song, but they didn't scream Michael Jackson to me, listening to them.
Right, right.
So that's a movie. I saw that twice. I went to see that twice because I saw it in a regular screening format, and then I saw it in IMAX. I wanted to hear the music and everything in the IMAX mix. Um, my preference is Dolby Cinema, but they don't. You can't always. They only each one of those multiplexes only has one Dolby Cinema screen, and it's not always the movie I want to see. And then the way I choose the movies, because I'm open 24/7 to this stuff.
Hmm.
I go to whatever theater suits me time wise. Like, I'll get up and I'll go, I haven't seen anything lately, and I'll look at the clock. I wonder what's playing between now and 1 o'clock or, whatever. And
Right,
then,
good.
and then I've gotten to know that like during the week, because school is in session, so not that many things start before 1 o'clock. But then
Well,
on
let me know. Let me know when what you're seeing in Pasadena. I
Thursdays,
may drive out and join you.
Thursdays and Fridays, yeah, at what used to be the ArcLight, where
Yeah.
we have our Sidney Pollack story.
Yeah. I love the fact that Sidney Pollack. I mean, I think Sidney Pollack was a great conversationalist from what I've witnessed, and he did do some amazing movies.
He
And it was
did.
interesting because we were talking about the Academy tribute to Robert Redford. You and I
Hmm.
weren't, but we in our circle were, and how it was done by Streisand, and some people thought that was a great call because of the way we were, but I really felt like Meryl Streep was the better call, and there was no way they were going to let Jane Fonda do it.
Well,
And
Jane did 5 movies with them. She takes credit for
she
four,
did,
but
she did,
each of them, their first film, like he had a minor part in some movie that she had done.
and they
So they
weren't going
actually
to
had
let
5 films that they did together.
right, but I don't.
Um,
They
but
weren't going to
they
let.
don't. But Jane doesn't quite have the cachet that Streisand. Yes, she has 2 Academy Awards, and I love Jane. Jane is when I worked at ABC, my first job at ABC. We were we were my first job at ABC was a security guard. Okay, I started
That's
there.
right.
I started there. I worked a couple of weeks. They had me doing nighttime, with the key run and stuff like that. And I told you about the guy who was at the main gate
Yeah.
until 8 o'clock in the morning. The bald head guy looks like a biker with a Fu Manchu mustache, missing tooth,
Right.
bald
Right.
earrings, you know.
Look,
Um, and
as Sidney Pollack would say, good for you. Now get to the Jane Fonda.
So anyway, so Jane came in a couple of times because she was shadowing the news crew for the
Oh,
China
right.
Syndrome.
China Syndrome.
So
Yes,
she
yes,
followed
that
our
makes
news
sense.
crew, and then she was following Channel 11 news crew people.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I only kept track of what she was doing for us. She was absolutely drop dead gorgeous, absolutely the sweetest person on earth. I mean, you needed insulin shots after you spent time with her. She was so sweet. I mean, she
Wow.
really, really was. And I just, love at first sight with Jane Fonda. And and I sympathized with her on this thing. I thought the Streisand thing was a good call. And you're right, like the Jane Fonda one. But then Jane also sparks controversy,
She does, and that's why they weren't going to go with it. But I
which
mean,
is a
also,
shame too. And then she
he,
ended up being my neighbor. She
oh
lived the
yeah,
street away from me. Yeah, because when she first came in when she first came into the studio for that stuff, I was in the process of moving, and I moved to Venice,
hmm,
and I was literally like the next street down from her. She lived on the Santa Monica side of the border, and I was just on the Venice side of the border. And so I would see her at there was a market. Right along Main Street. Main Street had a renaissance in Venice around 1979, and no, probably 1980, 81, around there. They called it the Main Street Renaissance. But when I first moved there was a little porno theater and other shady things, and then they cleaned it all up and they had this like Whole Foods kind of market there. And she was very much into the
yeah.
healthy, she and Tom Hayden were much into that healthy lifestyle thing. And I would see her there. I'd never approached her because it's creepy, you
So,
know.
yeah, she's polarizing. So she wasn't, and we know it wasn't going to go to Faye Dunaway, even though they did Condor together. But the thing I think about Streisand's tribute was it was such a weak remembrance in terms of a personal story.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised she wasn't coached up better for it. I thought she had a moment here to really put in the minds, particularly of young people who knew very little of Redford, what this guy meant and what he
Yeah.
did, Sundance Film Festival. And the story was he'd call me Babs, and then he signed the letter Babs. And I'm like, that's what you got, Barbara. That's it. That's
Yeah.
what you're
Well,
bringing to the Academy dance tonight live.
well, it's, in fairness to her, although it's going to sound unfair, um, can you direct her? She's a director herself.
She
Big
is
star. Can you direct her? Can you give her notes?
probably not.
Especially if she did, if all of this is true and if she did this herself, if she composed it herself, can you really direct her?
Mm,
I probably not. And the people running the Academy Awards had much bigger things to worry about that night than the Robert Redford tribute, which was probably put together in advance, and then she just came on to present it, you know?
probably.
So, and she doesn't, they do a dress rehearsal the day before, and big stars like that don't come to the dress rehearsals. Okay. I did a bunch of Academy Awards when I was unit manager at ABC. I was never
Yes.
the unit manager on the show. I was like an assistant on some of them, and then I was in charge of I was a unit manager for the commercial breaks and stuff like
Mhm.
that. They'd have several unit managers assigned to a big show like that. So I know how they do it. I know how the show is done. And you know, you can't really direct Barbara really.
So you think if someone
And
had a suggestion like, "Hey, Barbara, can we script doctor the note or the story?" She's not having it. She's not open to it.
I don't know, and how much time do you get to spend with her ahead of time? I mean, I really don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know. And we don't even know for sure that she wrote that. It
That's the
had
next
a
thing I was
sense,
just
it
thinking. Is
had
she
an
might
air
not have
of
even written it.
authenticity to it, though. I mean,
Yeah.
it really did, and it's kind of touching. It would mean a lot to me if if Bob Redford had a pet name for me, and I was telling somebody about it, and I would get teary-eyed too. I have a Robert Redford story for you.
Yeah, let's have
Well,
it.
I have a couple, but the first time I met Robert Redford, it was a Sundance event, not at Sundance, before they even created the institute there. He was just creating Sundance, the organization, and
Hmm.
he had a function at UCLA where they were honoring it was all about movie score produce composers, people who the composers for movies, and
Okay.
it was a big thing. It was a party. It was a party, and then this thing, and John Barry was supposed to be there. So when I think no, Patty and I went. I got invited to that. I'm sure I got invited, not Patty, but Patty, I could take a guess. So Patty went with me. We drove over to UCLA for it. Um, but it was this thing, and they were showing film clips and had a live orchestra, and John Barry was going to do it. But John
Hmm.
Barry got deathly ill. He had like a bleeding ulcer or something like that. He did almost die. So he didn't go. So they got Thomas Newman to do it, who did a fabulous job. But they had an orchestra there doing these things. But there was a cocktail reception ahead of time. And Bob comes out. He comes out to the cocktail thing and he's introducing himself to everybody. Okay. And he come over to me and he says, "Hi, I'm Bob Redford." And I started cracking up. And he goes,
Yeah,
"Hey, you never know." You know?
exactly. He
And that
was
was,
considered
I
easy to
didn't get
work
to
with.
meet him when we did. So I was so involved in 3 Days of the Condor. So, I didn't get to meet him. I saw him and Cliff Robertson from a distance, but I didn't
Love
get to.
Cliff.
Um, but but it was just so cool. It was just so cool. He was so nonchalant and so comfortable with himself.
Hmm.
Hi, I'm Bob Redford, and I'm cracking up going, I know. And he goes, "Hey, you never know." And he was such a good sport about his fame. He
Yeah.
wore that fame well. I mean, that was a suit that fit him and he was comfortable in it,
Yeah, he
you
was.
know?
He was. Okay, so in other bullet points from last discussion,
We talked a lot about Ted Turner. Did
we
you get
did,
that?
we did
Did you
talk,
get that? Because we
we
were
did
talking
get
about
that.
earlier about high achievers,
Yeah,
and there's
which he
there's a
was.
big high achiever that I had a conversation with. Not that I initiated, he initiated it, and he told me his entire life story, which was fascinating. Um, and I didn't tell you this
And it
when
brings it
we.
back to Jane Fonda.
Yeah, I know it does. It's true, and he still referred to her as his wife.
Yeah.
As it was still an ongoing thing. But he told me that his father hired him. He said, "I started working when I was like 8 years old or something. I want to say, or no, I'm getting eight from something else. As a teenager, his father put him to work on the billboards. All those Turner billboards that was his father's company. And so he would go out and he's cleaning up and or putting up billboards and stuff and maintaining the billboards. And his
Hmm.
father paid him $8 a week and then extracted $6 a week to live at home.
Yeah.
Honest to God,
Yeah, it's a good story.
And it's like, okay, that explains one thing to me about Ted Turner, because we had heard that when the Turner merger was happening, we'd heard this story that there were going to be layoffs on the Turner side, which there were because they shut down Turner Pictures. Castle Rock got cut back. I don't think it affected New Line per se, although I think they had to move to a new location. But I'm not 100% sure about that. But somebody in the Turner organization, somebody who had a really good job there, was one of Ted's kids. And his son asked him, "So so if I'm redundant, am I gone?" And Ted said, "Yeah."
So he told a story similar on Carson, where Carson was asking about his relationship with his kids, and he said, "Well, look, he started off by saying I wasn't as home as much as I would have liked, but work, and I did the best I could." And so he asked, the follow up was, "Well, what's the relationship like now then?" And Ted Turner's response is like, "Well, We're on a first name basis.
Oh, that's great. As only Ted. I mean, he
Yeah.
was such a character and
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
unforgettable. You meet him, he is an unforgettable person. I don't care what you think of him, good, bad, or indifferent. But you never come away from spending time with him the same person. I was a different person when I came away from my
Well,
both of my encounters with Ted Turner. I
you
was a
helped him
different person.
significantly because you helped shepherd Gods and
Gods
Generals,
and
which was
Generals,
his
I helped
pet
him out.
project, and he
Yeah, that
appears
was
in it, by
his.
the way.
Yeah, well, my thing was it's on what?
Well,
Are
no,
you
I
running?
said he appears in it. He's in. He
Yes, he
has a
does.
he has a
There's a
moment
couple
in it.
scenes. Couple
Hmm.
scenes. There were more scenes of him than are in the movie, but yeah, he's in the movie. And Ron Maxwell made a lot of cuts back and forth as we were previewing because we were getting notes from it. My favorite version of that
Battle
movie.
scenes don't hold up. Battle scenes don't
Um,
hold up, buddy.
no, I don't know that they were cut necessarily, but I mean, and it was conceived as a TNT like
Right.
two-parter or something like that. So stuff was cut in order for it to be a theatrical version, and then I think stuff got put back in for TNT, and then they came back on an anniversary. There was an anniversary where they came back to do like a director's cut version. I think there's a final Blu-ray sort of version of that, and I remember they came back to do that. And again, I helped, and all the same people came back. They were so delightful to work with. All of them, all of the editor and the assistants and Ron, they were, they were extraordinary. They were extraordinarily good at what they did, but they were so pleasant to work with. Um, like Mark Marshall has horror stories about some of the cutting rooms and stuff that he
Yeah.
had to deal with, and my
Yeah.
experience with Gods and Generals
Stuart Baird.
wouldn't go anywhere near, well, not the Richie Marks, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
Richard Marx was the bad one for him. Yeah, that's right.
so my experience with them doesn't even go anywhere close. I hear the cat meowing. But they were just fabulous in every way. I did learn something though, because we did a digital intermediate on it was one of the first digital intermediates we were doing at the time when they were starting to do color timing,
Mm.
digitally. And so when we went back in, I don't know, I think it was 5 years later that they went back in to do a DVD release and they expanded the version. Um, oh, it had to do with it must have been 2011 because it was going to be the 60th anniversary of the start of the Civil War, I think is what it was. So I think
Oh,
2011 is when we did that. But in and the original movie was probably like 95, 96, somewhere around there. Maybe 96. Oh, it might have been later than that. I don't remember exactly, but there was some commemoration of the time period in which it took place and what we were living in. And so we went back in to all the digital stuff from the color timing, and it was corrupted. A lot of those files were corrupted. So that taught me that this digital intermediate stuff isn't really as great as it's cracked up to be. And it tells me now that AI isn't quite what everybody thinks. I mean, a lot of people are afraid of it. I think and there's reason to be fearful, but they're not anywhere close to what they're saying it is. The people who are trying to sell this stuff, it is not nearly what they say it is. Not by a mile is any of this stuff ready. And it was the same thing with digital intermediates, and then the files are there and the files will be there forever. And you go back into them. Well, 5 years had passed and it was a problem. It might not have even been 5 years. And I noticed the same thing when we switched from analog sound to digital sound. Oh, this stuff, it was bullshit. And 3D, when they were doing 3D conversions, everybody was saying, "Oh yeah, we can do this, we can do that," and that was bullshit too. The technology was never where it needed to be. If you're going to do a 3D project, and a lot of directors were afraid of it because they didn't have any experience with it, so they agreed to do these conversions. So you compose the picture as if it's a 3D thing, and you know that it's going to be converted over in post-production, which is a complicated process because you have to get your interocular points right, and but if you're going to do 3D, do it in 3D, shoot it in 3D. That's the only way it really works. This conversion stuff, and nobody's doing 3D much anymore. Although I saw something in 3D in the last week.
What was it?
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think. What did I?
Well, we'll
Oh,
come
I
back
saw
to
the Billie Eilish concert that
All right.
James Cameron did it. He directed it. They co-directed. And he did some camera operating and stuff on it, but it's in 3D. They shot the concert itself was over 3 or 4 or 5 nights in Manchester, England, and then they have all this intro stuff about how they were doing it and all this kind of stuff. But it was in 3D, and I didn't see 3D rigs. They might have had them, and I don't know what they look like anymore. But yeah, so not that many. The 3D theaters are still out there. You can't find a 3D TV set to save your life now, because everybody's gone to 4K, and so you can't find 3D TVs. I have one, and I have a bunch of Blu-rays that are 3D. But anyway, that the conversion stuff is not. I don't think it ever has been what they all said it would be. And we don't give them enough time to properly do it anyway, because we have deadlines.
Right. Well, I forgot what got us on the 3D subject.
We were talking about
Ted Turner.
But Ted,
Yeah.
Ted, I didn't want to meet Ted. I was not especially interested in meeting him, but I'm glad I did because he changes you. He was so charming.
Well,
He was so
yeah,
charming. He was the most charming guy, you know.
he did a lot. He did a lot for the city. I mean, he gave $1 billion for,
Yes.
children's medical and health care,
Hmm.
like $1 billion.
Yeah.
And, he famously had the feud with Rupert Murdoch. And of course, the 24-hour news cycle is his idea. No one thought it would work. It did. And then,
Yeah. Well,
and then,
that came from him going home because he was a workaholic and he came home one night and he missed the CBS News. He wanted to
yeah,
watch the CBS News and he missed it. And and that I think that's when he realized that there actually was a marketplace for 24-hour news. But in our lifetime, I know certainly in my lifetime, but I'm sure in your lifetime, multiple newspapers in every city that had
mhm,
morning and evening editions.
yeah,
Okay. So
yeah.
there is a marketplace out there for news, and they've been doing 24-hour radio news for they were
Probably
doing
since
that
World War II.
before I started college. I remember
Yeah.
24-hour news. I mean, I wasn't tuning into it.
Oh no,
You
they've
know?
done that probably since World War II, I would think, and stuck with. It's funny because he was interviewed about that too on like Good Morning America, and someone is like, he was like on a monitor, but like a television monitor, and they were asking him, "So, Mr. Turner, you're going to start a 24-hour news sequence. Do you think that's going to work? And what's that going to be like?" And his response was, "Well, it's going to be like this show, only it's going to be on all day." Just like,
That's
what's
true.
with your dumb questions?
That's
It's
true.
like,
Well, I kind of miss headline news
yeah,
because CNN has become. I don't have a problem with CNN. I mean, I am not aware of politics. I hear all this stuff all the time from people who are even remotely a fraction of whatever you would measure it right of center, but how it's biased, and it's like it's I don't find it to be overtly biased. MS now, what used to be MSNBC, yeah, if you want
mm,
that sort of way left of center or more left of center bias thing, yeah, tune into that. And if you want the other side, tune into Fox. Yeah, but I don't perceive CNN as that. But here's the thing. And this was true even when I was in college because we had to take these communication courses in order to get into film. you had to learn the basic communication stuff. And we were doing radio, television, and film
Hmm.
um, at Temple University. Um, the 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 reporters, it's kind of like the police in a way. That reporters are out there in the field and they are seeing the victims of crimes and they are seeing the victims of fires and they're seeing, and they're empathetic to these people and everything. So that makes you more liberal all the time when you're seeing this all the time and you're having to describe it. That tends to move you into a more liberal space in your life. The publishers and the owners, the general managers of these stations and the networks are not. They are millionaire guys who hang out at the store, who don't go to some dive bar after work. They go to the Stork Club or whatever, high fashion place. And they hang out with a different crowd than the reporters do. Okay? So there's always been this tug of war between ownership and the people who are reporting this news. You know what I mean? So that's what I see on CNN. I see that struggle, with the people who want to report it one way and then the editors who might want to do it. And the guy, they just got rid of him not too long ago, but the guy who was the head of that was the guy who made Donald Trump a TV star, Jeff Zucker. It's
Yeah.
so I don't believe this stuff about CNN being biased because I don't see it myself. But I do see it in MSNBC, and I love tuning into Lawrence O'Donnell and listening to 30 minutes of him bitching about Trump because it's editorializing. It's fun to listen to, but then I get tired of it.
Do you
I
think
never
Trump
watched
listens to it? Do you think
I
Trump
never
listens
watched
to
it.
it?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I doubt it. He is so thin-skinned. I would admire him
I
if he
mean,
did.
he
Okay.
watches some of it, we know. But the question is, what does he
Well,
watch?
he might get a
'Cause-
digest from somebody because you can record this stuff. I could walk over to the TV here now and hit the record button without the TV even being on, and it'll record whatever is on, whatever the
I don't know.
satellite.
I have a feeling I see him as a guy who just can't help but tune in occasionally just to
Well,
see,
yeah, because he's in
you
love
know.
with his own image. Yeah, I see
Yeah.
that. So,
So we'll see.
you know,
All right.
it's
So,
I
huh?
was reminded of something else and I can't think of it now. Something else that we talked about yesterday.
Well, we covered a lot of ground
Yeah.
yesterday and today, but uh obviously James Earl Jones, Alec Baldwin, Hunt for Red October, John
Yeah, that
Milius,
was
Clint
cool. That
Eastwood,
was,
Tommy Lee Jones,
yeah.
and then of course we added today Sidney Pollack,
Disney
the
Pollock,
Jane
yeah.
Fonda,
Some Harry Potter stuff.
Harry Potter stuff, which was
Mark
very interesting.
Marshall,
Yes,
Jane
The
Fonda.
famous Papazian. Then we'd have a shitty Fox movie.
Yeah, yeah. And
Meeting.
the thing
Well,
is that like we all knew what he was talking about because we used to we used to think that we were the only ones in town making good movies, okay? So, but even we did Jonah Hex, okay?
that's right. That's right.
And then we used to say that, Universal wasn't even in the movie business. They were in the tour business. And that was the joke. The joke was, okay, that they make the movies because they need to bring people in to do the tour, okay?
I
But
think.
then I saw a satellite image. I saw a satellite. The newspaper published a satellite picture of the Universal lot because they were going to tear down the um, the amphitheater.
Mhm.
They were going to tear that down and build something else there. I guess the Harry Potter ride or something
That's
like
right.
that.
That's what
So
they
I'd seen
did
that,
do.
and then I had an epiphany. Okay, well, they do a couple of movies a year. They would much bigger slate now. They would do a couple of movies a year, and that draws people into the tour. Okay, because they're in the tour business. But after seeing that picture, they're in the parking lot business. Okay. They do the movies to get people to come to the tour, and they have the tour up there to draw
Yeah.
people into the parking lot for that city walk.
Well,
You
I'll
know,
tell you, Universal's been very good to us, and they've always been they've been a very collaborative element as far
they
as I'm
have
concerned.
had a great 3 or 4 years now. They have
Yeah.
they have done the best movies that have come out. Even though Warner's had a good year this past year with the Oscars and stuff, Universal had better movies that I wanted to see more than
But also,
Warner Brothers
I
did.
I suspect that tour has prevented a takeover at some point. Like that's what's kept them going. When everyone else is buying, 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 and they had a chance to buy
Yeah.
Disney when our boy was running it, and they
Well,
didn't.
when Lorimar was when they were talking about, I mean, there were various people who were looking at Lorimar to buy, Disney being one of them.
Hmm.
And because I remember I had my wife's sister worked at Disney, and she gave me a jacket for like my birthday or something, like it's a parka, like not a parka, but a windbreaker jacket that had Walt Disney
Hmm.
Studios embroidered on it, and I wore that into work one day, and it's like, oh, you're getting ahead of the game. My boss, you're getting ahead of the game there. Because Disney, they were talking about take us over. We didn't want them to because we knew everybody in town knows that Disney is a mean-spirited company that
Yeah,
doesn't care about the employees.
yeah. Which is why I love to give it back to him any chance I get
Yeah,
when we're on the battlefield.
yeah.
But
But I'm impressed with what Universal has done. And my
yeah.
favorite movie so far this year is Project Hail Mary, which is Universal.
Hmm.
Love that movie. I've seen it 4 times, I think. I've gone to see. I've
Wow,
seen
really?
different things. Well, I saw it in Dolby Cinema. I saw it in the AMC XL, the or Screen X or whatever. It's larger, much larger. It's a much larger screen.
Hmm.
I saw it in IMAX, and I saw it at the Regal in Pasadena in one of the theaters that we used to use. We used to use 7, 8, and 9 when we would do our recruited screenings. So I saw it in one of those three.
They used one of those theaters in the player. Remember that?
Did they really?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
For Altman used one of them, and it's a screening of The Bicycle Thief.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, for the Rialto, to double for the Rialto.
in conclusion,
Yeah,
obviously, the insight into the Steve Papazian, Jeff Robinoff, Warner Brothers
yeah.
relationship, the Dennis Verkler tribute, the Sidney Pollack moment, James Earl Jones, Robert Redford, Jane Fonda, Ted Turner, and
Ted
of
Turner.
course, everything in between. Final
All the
thoughts on
high
today's show?
achievers in my life.
Yeah,
It's been a great pleasure talking to you and talking about all these high achievers who somehow entered my life for a
yeah,
period,
yeah.
you know?
Very fortunate. And
And
of
I will
course,
never
you're our high
forget.
achiever. You're our high
Oh
achiever.
God, I wish. Well, well, you always want your aspirations to exceed your grasp.
Yes, true,
So,
true.
you know, so time for me to do my commercial.
Yes, let's have that commercial, and then I'm going to catch up with you for the movies next week in
Okay,
Pasadena.
so when you walked away, I go, and I'm going to talk to you. While he's talking to the Mormons, I'm going to talk to you about Diet Coke. Okay. Forget this Pepsi generation bullshit. Okay. There's no such thing as the Pepsi generation. They disappointed all of us. Okay. You want to go with Diet Coke. That's the one.
Now, if only Coke will give us that sponsorship that we will in turn to charity dollars and resources, that would be fantastic.
And the truth is that a lot of times I will go to the AMC over the Regal because they serve Coke there and not Pepsi.
Hey, these
And
are the
when I
choices one
go
has
to
to
the
make.
Regal, when I go to the AMC, I get Coke. I'll do like a diet cherry Coke.
Hmm.
That's my go-to. And then if I go to the Regal, I get water. So I'm healthier at the Regal than I am at the AMC.
One has to enjoy their experience at the theater, however they do it.
Oh, I just
So
love
do.
the movies. And so when I go in the afternoons, it's like work. The only thing missing is Dee Dee Allen.
Yeah. Oh,
'Cause,
yes. And we were
uh,
talking about her because she cut the Breakfast Club, and we were
she
talking about
did.
that the other day too.
Yeah.
She edited that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that's missing, and I feel very comfortable at that hour of the day, and there's nobody there usually. Um,
That's how I like it too.
Michael had a big crowd when I went to see that. That was a huge crowd in that theater. That was in IMAX where it was a huge. Oh, well, they were all huge crowds.
Hmm.
A lot of these, the times I go, there's only like 5 or 6 people, maybe a dozen or so, and I'll be texting. I have a friend in England. I text him, "Hey, I'm at the movies," and it's just me and 4 other people, or it's just I walked in one, and I thought I was the only one there, and I saw a woman way up in the back, and that was You, Me, and Tuscany, I think, that movie. Okay, and it's just, so this woman's way up in the back, and I said, "Is it just us then? Is this a private screening?" And she said, "I don't know. I was beginning to think it was just going to be me." And I
And
said,
then you
"Well,
showed up.
and then I said to her, "Well, if it's just us, I don't see why they can't pause this thing for us to use the restroom halfway through. Do you?"
That, and ladies and gentlemen, that's an executive in pure form right there. That's an executive question. Let's figure out a movie. I'll come out to Pasadena and see it with you.
If I see something that catches my eye that I want to see, I'll text you and say, "Hey, what about this one?"
Let me know, buddy. It's always good to see you. Thank you for being so gracious with today's broadcast.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm happy to be here. I hope the glitches I saw are not a problem.
Well, we'll know in a few minutes, but I think we're going to be good, man. And I'll circle back, but I owe you one. And ladies and gentlemen, the legend, Bill Daly. The world's a better place with him in it. All right, buddy. I'll see you soon.
That's nice of you to say. Thank you. Okay. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I was nothing more than a school teacher of mathematics en route to the Americas when a storm overtook our ship and tipped my world on its axis. I was rescued, but by who?
You'll be allowed to stay on and work until we make the next port. We're not pilgrims. This is a warship. Can you fight or no?
I'm a teacher. What the hell am I doing here? Be inside before dark and bolt your doors. Their presence means death. No Quarter, Kill All Masters. Now available on Audible and everywhere dangerous books are sold.